Hey, everybody. It's Julie Roginsky here with Jarvis. Welcome to our Friday Media Power Hour. I don't even know what this is called, but
Dissection of the
dissection of the
cadaver of
media.
media.
Yes, but good to see everybody here. Michelle is a bit under the weather, so she is not joining us today. Hopefully, she will feel better. She was struggling, for those of you who joined us this morning, and I think she just needs to get some sleep. So good to see everybody. Jeff, uh, you know, yet another crazy, insane day in the media. And I want to get to a couple of things. I want to talk about this Warner Brothers Discovery CNN to do, where the president is now getting just completely involved in state run media. But before we get to that, I want to put this in some historical context. And you're the perfect person to talk about this too, because I don't know that people know this. There's a very sort of small item that was reported where Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has now decided that he's going to only insist on a very specific, we're only all allowed to use, or I guess the State Department is only allowed to use one specific font to communicate, and that is Times New Roman. How boring. They got rid of Calibri. Calibri is now banned. No more Calibri.
It's woke. It's a woke font.
It's a woke font. We're not allowed to use Calibri anymore. I use Calibri just because I think it's my default font, but sure, Times New Roman, I guess. I mean, whatever. Does it matter? Who cares?
So it's a fascinating and stupid story because they wake up every morning saying, "What stupid thing can we do to just bug people and distract from the fascism going on?" And so under the Biden administration, Calibri was used as a matter of access for people. Serifed fonts, especially online, can be hard to read for some people with visual difficulties, and I think for other conditions as well. So they moved to it. Well, that of course, anything Biden did is awful and woke and terrible. So now they're going to dictate Times New Roman, which was designed by Stanley Morrison for the Times of London as a way to squeeze more content into columns. It was called at the time a very masculine font for the Times of London, and they kept it for some years until technology presses changed and they got rid of it anyway. And so now it's kind of everybody's default font on Microsoft Word and Google Docs and so on and so forth. And I use it all the time because I think it looks better than Arial. However, there's some history here that I think is quite relevant. This is not the first time that a government has made an issue of a typeface. In 1911, this is I reported this on my book. I might as well plug it on my book in my book, the Gutenberg parenthesis, a history of printing. The German Reichstag in 1911 voted that the official typeface of the nation was Fraktur, which is that German script that none of us in the rest of the world can read, and it's kind of awful. And by 1928, more than half the German books and periodicals were printed in it. Hitler required its use, even though he didn't much like it. He told the Reichstag in 1934 that it does not fit well in this age of steel and iron, glass and concrete, of womanly beauty and manly strength, of head raised high and intention defiant. So that was the view of this very German typeface. Along came a guy named Jan Tschichold, who wrote a book called The New Typography, in which he argued against serifs. And he argued for an engineering view of typefaces, a very clean typeface. And he said that Fraktur was a exclusivist and national font. Well, this was a dangerous view because in 1933, he was arrested for writing this about typography. And his book was seized by the authorities. He was put in jail for 6 weeks because of a typeface, until he could leave finally, and he went and escaped to Switzerland and then on to England, where he designed the Penguin books. Meanwhile, in 1941, Martin Bormann issued an order, just like Marco Rubio's, labeling Fraktur, without any basis, Jew letters, and decided that no, in fact, they didn't want to have this script that no one could read in the countries they were taking over. So they abandoned the very German Fraktur and went to more normal Roman type And he said at the time, our language can truly become a world language as they took over the world. So there's a history of this kind of stupidity in fascism. And you'd think that they would have had some sensitivity to this, but of course not. Meanwhile, one more postscript to the story is Chikold, the guy who was arrested because of a typeface, recanted his views. He decided that what he'd written about typography was itself in service of National Socialism and fascism, a ruthless restriction of typefaces and the more or less militaristic arrangement of lines. So he too went back to lovely serifs, and he created a typeface called Sabin, in which my book is published for that reason.
Oh, that's actually a nice postscript. But as much as people kind of laugh this off as kind of as buffoonish, I guess, on Rubio's part, and as much as we talk about how ridiculous it is that the Secretary of State / National Security Advisor is focusing on something this stupid, not only does this put this in context of what you talked about with Hitler and the Nazi regime, but I think it's also fascinating in that this is one more attempt by this administration to micromanage everything. And by everything, I mean even straight up capitalist mergers between one company and another. And for all that Trump has called every Democrat on earth a socialist and a communist, the person who is engaging in private enterprise more than anybody else is Donald John Trump. And I want to talk about that with respect to what's happening now with the Warner Brothers acquisition. Warner Brothers is up for sale. They accepted Netflix offer to acquire them. That did not make Larry and David Ellison, who now own Paramount, happy. They, of course, are very close to Trump, and they decided that they were going to do a hostile takeover. And part of that hostile takeover involved investors, because even the Ellisons don't have the kind of money to do this all by themselves. Involved certainly our friends in the Middle East, or I should say Trump's friends in the Middle East, the people, of course, who are well known for their free speech rights and their media when they're not chopping up journalists into body parts. But also, surprise, surprise, a member of the Trump family, Jared Kushner, through Affinity Partners, his private equity fund, which is, as far as I can tell, a enterprise of the Saudi Arabia Sovereign Wealth Fund. Trump decided to get involved and said that there's no way that really all of Warner Brothers Discovery needed to be acquired as a unit. Somebody needed to acquire CNN because CNN was not going to be acquired by Netflix. Netflix didn't want CNN because it's a dying medium and linear television is dying. They wanted streaming. They wanted this, which is why they wanted HBO, but not CNN. And sure enough, I guess Netflix is not going to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery because I think probably regulatory problems are going to arise for them to do that, because guess who controls the regulatory approval process? Of course, it's the Trump administration. So what do you make of this all, Jeff?
It's all a hot mess, and it's all part of the urbanization of American media. It's part of Trump taking it over by one means or another. I don't know where it's going to end up. I think there's still a chance that Netflix could take it over, because I think what Trump was signaling in essence was anybody who's a friend of mine, buy CNN and ruin it. And so whichever way it goes, if it's the Ellisons who take it over, then he knows they're going to change it. If Netflix wins and they're not taking over CNN, then somebody should buy it, says Trump, and do that. The Ellisons, by some view, overplayed their hand with Trump and thought that because they were in the bidding, that was it. It was a done deal and it was going to be okay. And they called in and they obviously used Kushner and they brought in a bunch of Arab money. Netflix, from what I've read, has said that the guarantees of funding are not sufficient, that Larry Ellison has not personally guaranteed the funding. So there is some question whether the Paramount bid, the hostile bid they have now put in, will be successful. And there's arguments, just let the shareholders decide one way or the other. So that'll play out at a very big level with retirement funds and so on and so forth. The other thing that's happened in the meantime is that Larry Ellison ain't the brilliant business god that one might have thought. He tied his star too much to OpenAI, which put his stock going way up because it was basically a somnambulant company, not unlike Donald Trump himself. And then as OpenAI has lost some of its shine because Google turns out is the new Google,
Right.
and Gemini is really good, and Google has been doing all kinds of things, both in foundation models and in applications like Nano Banana, and in hosting and in chips. So Google's really winning on AI all across, and OpenAI is now in a panic. Sam Altman has put out a red alert, and that in turn affected the stock market in terms of Ellison. And he alone brought down the NASDAQ yesterday. So the money that he was planning to spend with his son to buy Warner Brothers Discovery is a little less today. Now, again, he has Arab friends and he has Kushner, but I think that deal gets to look a little gushier as it goes. But the point remains, as you say, Julie, no matter what, the clear target in Trump's mind is CNN, full stop. And one way or the other, he wants it eviscerated. And it is at risk more than ever.
Who at CNN drives him nuts? Like what is it? Who specifically at CNN is he just like, who's this person there?
Well, he got rid of Jim Acosta already.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know that it's any one person there. I think that it's just that it's not Fox. And of course, he can get upset with Fox at times too when they aren't sufficiently worshipful of him. But I think that anything that looks like an actual journalistic organization, even though CNN, as you and I know, acts scared these days and not without reason. But I think he just wants to go after them. The same way he hates the Washington Post, even though it's in his camp, might as well be as much in his camp now. He hates the New York Times. He hates journalism as a whole. He wants to control it.
Well, it's interesting because if you want to know about the future of CNN under, Trump enablers, you only need to look at what's happening at CBS. And I wrote a whole Substack about this, and I continue to just gasp because, and I'm very loath to promote it, but tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern in prime time, Barry Weiss, the new chief over at CBS, which is also owned by the Ellisons, is blowing out programming, including some award show that I think they had programmed for months, to run a town hall with Erica Kirk, who is going to be moderated by Barry Weiss, which is crazy because she has a network to run. I mean, I've never heard of this before, but also populated by evangelicals. And I mean, let's just call this for what it is. Erica Kirk, I'm very sorry that her husband got killed, but Erica Kirk is not focusing her time talking about grief or even talking about how we could bring the country together to avoid political assassinations. Erica Kirk is promoting herself. She's promoting her husband's noxious agenda. And she's doing this under the guise of grief and exploiting, I guess, never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity, like out of every, what's the phrase? Out of every tragedy comes opportunity or something. Out of chaos comes opportunity. That's what's happening right now. And CBS is helping her do this because you can bet your ass that it's not going to be a hard-hitting interview saying to Erica Kirk, oh, I don't know, you're talking about how women should get married younger. You're talking about how they're putting career ahead of their children and ahead of having a husband. But Erica, you didn't get married till you were in your 30s. You didn't have kids till you were in your 30s. You were living it up in New York City as a real estate agent, like every other girl who comes to New York in her 20s and decides she's going to make it big, right? You were running a clothing line, Erica. You weren't getting married in your 20s. You weren't popping out kids in your 20s. What about that? What about all the horrible things your husband has said? Let's play a 5-minute video of all the things your husband said. Do you stand by it? Because she's put herself out there. She's not just there talking about grief. I mean, she is pushing a very specific agenda. Turning Point USA was very involved in this debacle in Indiana where they were trying to change redistricting. She's running Turning Point USA. I don't know who's watching her kids. I don't know who is spending time with them, but she's working, just to be clear. She's not a trad wife by any stretch of the imagination, though she wishes that on all of us. Those kinds of questions are not going to be asked. It's going to be all about Jesus and all about grief and all about what a wonderful person she was to forgive her husband's killer, and probably some swipes of Candace Owens, and probably a little, prose roll content thrown in just because it's Barry Weiss. But like, that's the future of CNN if the Ellisons take it over, because we already see what's happening at CBS.
Amen to all that. And in my town in New Jersey, just yesterday I was driving by a Catholic cemetery nearby, and I think this was their property, but there's a huge sign on it, 7-foot tall sign, picture of Charlie Kirk with his fist raised. May Charlie be received into the merciful arms of Jesus, our living Savior. In the middle of my town, in Purple, New Jersey, my town went against Trump. And also, we talked last week in New Jersey, Turning Point is coming into schools in this state. Yeah, so it's not just as if it's happening in the deepest, darkest, reddest places. It's happening on CBS. It's happening in New Jersey. It's happening everywhere. And there needs to be tough questioning, and it damn well isn't going to happen from Barry Weiss. And it's also this, and you've touched on this a lot, Julie, in the program. It's Barry Weiss and Israel. Barry Weiss is Jewish. She's the biggest supporter of Netanyahu and Israel politics right now, coming together in that weird marriage of the far right evangelicals and Zionists, and for all kinds of complex reasons of belief in the second coming and all of that. We won't even get into all that. But it's a very weird marriage that comes together on this show. So it's Barry Weiss with evangelicals, not other people, no real questioning, using the entertainment hours. And what upsets me, you're right, in a way we don't want to give any more attention to it, but where's the furor? Where's the furor from the rest of journalism? Where's the furor from the rest of CBS? Where's the furor from CNN saying this better not happen to us? I don't hear it. I don't hear it anywhere. And so this thing will go on, and maybe it'll get ignored, and that's all. What that also means is that then she can just run roughshod over these old media properties and turn them into propaganda arms.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, Netanyahu, as you said, has had a very long, and I would say sordid relationship with evangelicals. There's a reason why there's an evangelical as the ambassador to Israel today, Mike Huckabee. But Netanyahu's also kind of given the back of the hand to American Jews and said, I don't need American Jews. I've got evangelicals. Right? Like, American Jews are gone to me because they're not going to go along with my bullshit, but the evangelicals will. So I'm going to hitch my wagon to the evangelicals. And that's what you're seeing tomorrow. That is what you're seeing on Saturday night on CBS. And speaking of having no moral compass and this has been driving me crazy all week, and I want to talk to you about this. No moral compass, no loyalty to the profession, no self-respect as an institution. American journalism, if you only want to see which way it's going, look at the White House press corps. So I for the upteenth time, I've lost count of how many times Donald Trump has once again gone after a woman asking him a question, and a legitimate question. Somebody at CNN yesterday, I can't remember who it was. It was Caitlin Collins at CNN a couple of days ago. It was Rachel Scott at ABC. It was the female reporter from NPR who he called Piggy. I believe she was NPR. And I'm probably losing 4 or 5 other things that he said. But, what's disgusting about this whole thing and deeply upsetting is that when he does that, the rest of the press corps doesn't stand up. I mean, there's 2 press corps, by the way. There's the press corps that pretends to be impartial, and there's the press corps that is in the tank for Trump. That's not really the press who's at the White House briefings. But nobody raised their hand and said, Mr. President, until you answer this question about these boat strikes, which was the question on the table, nobody else is going to ask you anything. And in fact, we're going to team up and keep asking you the same question in rotation over and over and over again until you either answer it or you end this briefing. But they're so afraid of losing access that they don't care. They just want access. And I guess my question for you, Jeff, is access to what? To being exploited?
Right. There's no actual news that comes out of it. The most that's going to happen is they're going to get yelled at by Trump, and there's no point in holding on to that access. Hold on to your pride. Go out with the flame. I wonder what would happen though if someone said, "Mr. President, I'm going to ask my colleague's question here," or "You didn't answer my
They
colleague's
don't believe
question."
how toxic this is.
Whoops. Sorry, go ahead. I was trying to download the video you sent me, but I have no idea how to do that without Michelle, so I'm going to not do
Okay,
that.
never mind. I just happened to look while we were here that there's promotional video for
Yep.
the
I saw it. Yep.
horrible thing tomorrow. But yeah, I was afraid of that. Without Michelle, we're lost in a sea of technology.
We're in trouble, but go ahead.
So Bill Gruskin, who's a former Wall Street Journal top editor, who's at Columbia Journalism School, put this up online and excoriates the other journalists in the room. To start there is why are you just moving on to another anodyne question? Why aren't you at least re-asking the question? Why aren't you at least noting that he didn't answer the question? Why aren't you in any way supporting your fellow journalists? There's no honor among thieves and journalists. It's depressing to see what's happening here.
I don't understand it, and I have to wonder if you're one of these journalists. I mean, what's the White House press corps for? I mean, like, what's the White House Association for other than throwing a nice dinner, which is actually not that nice?
Exactly the point. If anyone should be starting the fury about how he's treating journalists, it should be the White House Press Association, and they're not doing it.
Who's running that now? Do we know? I guess I could look it up, but it's just I don't get it. I don't understand what they're doing. White House Correspondents Association, that's what it is.
Right, and officers are now.
Yeah, who is it? About Us. Let's see, officers. Well, it's Ruja Jang. It's CBS News.
CBS News.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah. So what happens if she put out a statement against Trump? What do you imagine Barry's going to do? Barry's going to fire her in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, I would say go out with a blaze of glory and your head held high.
Yes, but that's a lot of money and a lot of profile to pass up, and it's some of us did it and some of us didn't, and so I think that's the difficulty here. It's just a lot of these people have clawed their way to the top, understandably so. You don't get to be, you have to work pretty hard to get that job, and what happens to you? You get applauded, but you don't get a job anywhere else afterwards. I mean, who's going to hire you in this environment? And I think
right.
You can go independent, which, by the way, I highly recommend, but the problem is that there is and I know this from having lived down there is a dust that settles upon you when you live in Washington, where the hierarchies just, if he's the president, you have to treat him with respect. What happens when the president of the United States doesn't deserve respect because he has defiled the office? I understand that the office deserves respect, or it used to, not under this president. He's defiled it.
Let me ask you a question, Julie. Do you think that Trump will do to the White House press corps what Hegseth did to the Pentagon press corps?
No, because I think he loves the sparring. I think he actually enjoys it. I think what he has is, the people from like Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend and people like that who are just sucking up to him nonstop, or were. I guess that poor guy's, a little bit in the wilderness now. But you have your crazies that he's got that are just fluffing him every day. I don't know how else to say it. But then he doesn't respect them, right? Like if you think about Donald Trump,
no,
he doesn't respect them.
When he was with Mamdani, he ignored them. He sloughed them off.
Yeah, what he wants is Caitlin Collins to submit.
All right, so then that would tell me that what the journalist should be doing is leaving. Leave the press room to the same nut jobs that are in the Pentagon.
Agreed.
Devalue it.
Agreed, because think about what happened when they left the Pentagon. They proceeded to write incredible stories about what was happening inside the Pentagon anyway. I mean, all of the good reporting that you've seen on Hegseth, I shouldn't say all of it, but a lot of the good reporting you've seen on Hegseth has been since he kicked them all out.
Exactly.
But I don't know if you saw the story that Mother Jones published either late last night or this morning. I read it this morning, which I thought was very chilling, which is that there was a reporter, Mother Jones, who had a question for somebody who Hegseth was appointing to some high-ranking role at the Pentagon, somebody who was a buddy of Hegseth's in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever they served together. And Hegseth considers him a mentor. Well, this guy's got a really sketchy past where they found his Goodreads list, and apparently it has to do with like having like sex with lady boys and raping Asian women and all sorts of weird stuff. He asks a question of the White House the Pentagon press secretary about this, and within seconds gets a response back from Jack Posobiec, who they're claiming they're not cooperating with, asking this guy about his own background, and that they're going to publish, Sobiek's going to publish a story about this guy's background. And they're basically trying to intimidate this guy out of reporting on the Pentagon by saying that they're going to excavate some, misdeeds in his prior marriage or some, some stuff that's obviously embarrassing, not disqualifying, just embarrassing. And apparently Mother Jones sat for a long time and decided what to do about this, because they now became the story and ultimately published the story and published what was happening. It hasn't gotten the pickup that it should, but it's a crazy, crazy story of what is happening now, where if you ask a legitimate question of the Pentagon today, you are going to be personally eviscerated by their outside allies like Jack Posobiec, who now apparently has a Pentagon press pass.
This is where we are. And, you would think that at least media would be mad about how media are treated, let alone how everyone else is treated, how immigrants are treated, how women are treated, and on and on and on. Where is the shock? Where is the fury? Where is the anger? Where is the surprise at the next horrible thing that happens? And it's not there. And I've said it before with you, and I'll say it again, is what we're lacking is judgment. There's no judgment of these awful things that are happening in our country, in our name. And it goes to piracy on the seas, taking over ships for no reason, killing people, murdering people. The second strike is at least getting attention. But generally, there's no shock and no anger and no fury at what's happening.
None. And they're proceeding as though it's business as usual. Mm-hmm. How long did it take the New York Times to finally call Donald Trump a liar, or to say that he lies? Years. Right. And then you have this, consistent, like, we got to do both sides, when both sides is one person saying the earth is flat, the other person saying the earth is round. As opposed to just saying, you know what, this guy's declared war on us. He just has. And we are the goddamn fourth estate, and we are going to do what we have always pretended that we've done, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, which is we're going to speak truth to power without fear or favor. I mean, that fear or favor line has been a line consistently, something that the press likes to pat itself in the back about. Well, now's the time. I mean, now is the time. And I got to say to people in the press corps, like, listen, I get it. I walked away from an incredible gig over at Fox News. Sometimes you got to just do the right thing, and it's fine. You're going to sit there, you're going to stare at the ceiling for a little bit and wonder what the hell just happened to your life and how a Mack truck slammed into you. And then you're going to pick up and you're going to say, holy shit, it's actually nicer out here because I don't have to put up with shit anymore. I could just do my own thing.
And you can stand in pride for what you did.
And stand in pride for what you did. And so, like, the fact that these people are sitting there taking abuse is insane. Like, Caitlin
allowing the abuse next to them.
Caitlin Collins, I get it. Actually, I think she's very good. She has a great gig at CNN. She's got a primetime show. And obviously the deal was that she had to also be the White House one of the White House people when Trump came back. Fine. But the problem is that when he is telling her, refusing to answer her questions and making personal attacks upon her, CNN is sitting there saying, holy shit, well, wait a second, we can't do anything about this because we might get sold and this guy's going to fire us. It's not Caitlin Collins who I think is thinking this way. It's her bosses who are thinking this way.
Who should be standing up? Thompson should be out there protesting. Where
Thompson, who used to be at the New York Times. Thompson used to be the BBC.
The BBC.
Like, what the hell what's up with him? What happened to him when he came into CNN? Was he always this way, or is this like a new transformation since CNN?
He was a very good executive at the BBC, and since then the BBC's been having its own problems galore.
Right.
But the BBC is a unique job in the world because you've got to maneuver politics differently there. He
Right.
managed to do that well. At the Times, it really was a pure business job. It was worrying about the paywall, worrying about the international expansion, and he did a good job at that. And basically retired, and then was brought back for CNN. But you can't treat CNN as a business role now. Thompson has to be in charge of the journalistic integrity of the company, and he's capable of doing it. I fully believe he's capable of doing it, but he's not standing up as that kind of leader in defense of his own staff and in defense of his brand, if you want to put it that crudely, and in defense of journalism as a whole. That's where the pushback should start. And, I really feel for the frontline employees, the on-air employees at CNN, because as you and I have discussed before, last time I was on, I made reference to the danger of Ellison taking over, and I could say it because the employees couldn't say it, and it may be the last time I'm on because of that. But fine, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I know that various employees were grateful that I said what I said because they couldn't say it. Their bosses need to be out there defending them and journalism, and they're not. And that's the first level of disappointment. But then the New York Times should be out there as well. MSNBC and Versant should be out there as well. Hell, people have defended Fox News as if it were a journalistic organization in the rest of media. People have put more oomph behind Fox than they're now putting behind CNN. Even Fox should stand up and say, don't treat our colleagues that way, because people did that for them. I don't expect that's ever going to happen, but in a logical world, that would happen.
I was at Fox when Obama basically tried to kick them out. Remember? He was like, this is not a real news organization. And the outcry from the likes of Jake Tapper specifically
Right.
was actually heartening, I thought. And in retrospect, I think Obama was right. At the time, I didn't think so, because at the time I believed that we have a First Amendment and everybody should be able to ask whatever questions they want. Now it's, sometimes you have to leave the swamp to figure out exactly how swampy it is. But, now I understand, obviously, Fox News is nothing more than a propaganda machine. And so I don't know that they do deserve a role in the White House briefing room. But there's an argument to be made that they did. And I remember so well how Jake Tapper just went ballistic about Obama doing this until Obama backed down, until the White House backed down.
Yeah.
And that's not happening now. And I'm not suggesting that Fox would ever do this, because they wouldn't. But it's not happening. But it's not happening even for themselves. And I have to say this: the part that I just don't understand, Jeff, and it's so obvious if you have a little bit of distance from the situation, which is that, do they think it's going to work out differently from them if they don't say anything? It's over. I mean, it's over. It's just a question of whether you leave with dignity or you leave, with your tail between your legs.
Right.
It's just, it's over. It is 100% over for most of them. Whatever becomes of CNN, it is going to be the Scott Jennings show. Tapper will probably survive, because Tapper has been seeing where the wind is blowing for a long time and is completely moved.
Sadly.
Because I think he does have some talent, but I think he's just, decided that he's going to keep his job one way or the other, or go work at Fox, or go work at CBS, or whatever he has to do to stay alive. But I have tremendous respect for people like Erin Burnett, who probably see which way the wind is blowing, and is going to be doing the best job that she possibly can before the lights are turned off. But for Mark Thompson specifically, does he think like he's going to, if I were Mark Thompson, I'd be looking for another job right now. I mean, he's not sticking around.
No,
he won't be there in a year.
I agree.
He will not be there in a year. So why not just do the right thing?
Yeah. Stand up and be proud. And by the way, call A.G. Sulzberger and say, we could use an editorial or two over here. Can you stand up in support of us? You've done all these things, AG, about the threats on journalism and independent journalism, and let's hear a little support from you here. He knows AG. He could do that. AG could do that. But
and AG would. I think AG would do that. I think he would. I think he would. Sure. I think he would. because there's why not?
He's not going to lose anything more because of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Trump
why
already
not?
hates him. Yeah.
And so, and it doesn't matter because AG, unlike everybody else, is not trying to be acquired or not trying to sell or try. I mean, the Times in some ways is insulated more than anybody else because they're still family owned and it's fine. But you know, much like Fox, I should say, to some extent. But it's fascinating to me how they're not doing that, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fascinating to me that they're just not say even Versant or whatever the hell it's called now, right? Like they got spun off. It's all the same stuff, but at some point, stand up for your fellow. What do you care? Stand up for CNN. It's not like they're going to take ratings away from you. Nobody's watching it.
Yeah. Rachel Maddow, I think, used her privilege well when Joy Reid was fired. And same with Nicole Wallace. They stood up and dared to challenge their bosses on that. It didn't change anything, but at least showed where they stood. And I respect them for it.
Right.
They could be doing the same thing right now for CNN.
Yeah. Because look, I only know Abby Phillip. I used to go on her show all the times, but I don't know her other than to be on the show with her. It's not like I personally hang out with her or ever really had a conversation with her off air. But I will say that I don't know if she's making the decision to platform people like Scott Jennings every day or Jillian Michaels or Ben Ferguson or Katie Miller or any of these wackadoodles, or it's just good for ratings. So what the hell, we'll platform them anyway. But you're knowingly platforming liars. I mean, listen, I've always said, and we've talked about this before, I don't mind having a debate with people who I profoundly disagree with. I did that on Fox every single day for 11 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And every time Scott Jennings complains, I laugh because, like, you know what? I had that job much in a much harder environment than he has. But I will also say that there's a difference between platforming people with whom you disagree and platforming people who just look into the camera and lie.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much authority Abby Phillip. I mean, it's a horrendous circus they give her, and I think she does a good job of managing the circus as best she can. What I don't know is how much authority she has over booking.
Well,
Does she at some point say, "I can't deal with this person anymore"? But she is not the one who decides to pay Scott Jennings a reported 7-figure salary.
Yeah.
Right. And at some point, and it's Mark Thompson does decide to do that.
Right.
So it all flows uphill.
Right. And, I remember very well when Scott Jennings was renegotiating that deal, all the sudden leaks that showed up about how other people are interested in Scott Jennings and other networks wanted Scott Jennings. And the reality is, no, they weren't. I can tell you right now they weren't, because who are these other networks, right? CBS had not yet been acquired by the Ellisons. Maybe now they'd be interested, but he certainly wasn't going network because he was a pathological liar. ABC certainly, MSNBC at the time certainly wasn't going to have him, and Fox doesn't need him.
They don't need him. They got 100 of them.
He's like Timu Greg Gutfeld, right? Like they have the real thing. Why do they need like a Timu version of their people? Like they've got the gold standard of Republican trolls. They don't need him. And so the fact that Mark Thompson fell for it is absurd. Where was Scott Jennings going to go?
Yeah.
Other than getting pressure from the White House.
I made a GIF. I've mentioned this before. I made a GIF that when I was on CNN the last time, and I mentioned the Ellisons coming on, and Jennings did this take to the camera, like, "You just wait, Henry Higgins," and he's sitting as a catbird. He didn't get to be anchor of CBS News, no, but he'll be fine. He's already fine now. He was
never going to be anchor of CBS. This is the bullshit that drives me crazy. Under what scenario was he ever? He was never under consideration to be anchor of CBS News. He's got some good PR person who calls Page 6 or whoever the hell, Media 8. It's actually Media 8 because they do his bidding for him, and say, "Hey, you know what? CBS News is interested in Scott Jennings being anchor of CBS News," and they print it as though it's fact. And then Mark Thompson, sitting in his ivory tower, is like, "Oh wow, we better do this before." Like, are you fucking kidding me?
This is kind of greatest hits show. I've mentioned this before too, but last week I think I mentioned. Last week I was in Austria at a media summit, And Austrian media is very small, but media leaders were there and talking about issues related to both journalism and to the state of Europe and politics and so on. And I mentioned this, I think, last week, that I was shocked when I learned that some years ago now, half a dozen years ago, the last Association of American Editors died. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And the ANPA, APME is gone. And what was the Association of American Publishers became NMA, which is nothing but a lobbying organization. It is purely lobbying. They don't have a conference anymore. So American publishers and editors do not get together anymore at all. And so they don't stand together as a profession, an institution, a trade, a craft, call it what you will. There is no structure for supporting the tenets of journalism and the freedom of journalism in this time when it is under attack. And I don't hear any calls out there saying, well, we ought to get together again. We ought to put out a statement. We ought to at least have a panel worrying about it. But no, it's a shell of its former self, which means that it's you, Julie, it's the other independent people out there who are the future.
It's really, it's just incredible. It's just amazing. And speaking of independent media, our favorite topic on Fridays is, did you read the new Ryan Lisa installment?
I did. I wasted a good 20 minutes reading that one too. What did you think?
I mean, I think it's getting to the point where like, there's the micro question, there's the macro question, right? The micro part, which I'll dispense with first, is like, this is like Days of Our Lives, and he's painting her
pure soap opera now.
It's pure soap opera now. It's like it's gotten to the point where like pure soap opera now, up to and including Gavin de Becker popping up as the evil South African who's gonna like murder everybody, right?
Should we do a quick recap for your listeners?
Yeah, why don't you recap?
Just simply this episode of
this week's As the World Turns,
as the Z's turn, exactly. Is Ryan Lisa talking about all the ways that Olivia was trying to attack him and make him the problem and make him the enemy and scare him away and argue that she feared him and trying to make him scared of Bobby and sicking horrible PR on him. And a few of her friends would call him and let him know what the latest lies are. And he spends every day saying, no, I didn't shtup my nanny because my kids are teenagers. I don't have a nanny, and on and on and on. So it just goes at length about that. I think that's probably the main points, wouldn't you say?
I mean, listen, I get it. I get it, because if you've ever been the subject of, that kind of, not with an ex, but even in a workplace situation, like, I get it. You feel the need to get it off your chest, and I don't begrudge him for getting it off his chest.
No, I don't either.
But the macro part that bothers me and continues to bother me is all of this information was known to both Olivia Nuzzi and to Ryan Lisa before Robert F. Kennedy's confirmation hearings. And effectively what he's alleging here is that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. hired this guy, Gavin de Becker, who's a very famous kind of big time, I don't even know how to describe him, private eye, but like a fixer, I guess is the best way to put it for people in Hollywood and LA, to threaten Ryan Lisa and to cover up all of the stuff until he got through his confirmation hearings, that Olivia was taking a bullet for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. by blaming all of this on her ex-fiance as opposed to exposing him because she needed him to get through these confirmation hearings, because I guess in her mind, once he did, they'd be together. Or he was going to leave his wife. And fine, she's obviously not well. We already dispensed with the fact that she has no journalistic integrity, and I think she wants to be a celebrity, whatever that means. And as you pointed out, she'll certainly be either on The Real Housewives or in Dancing with the Stars very soon. In fact, she's probably going to be on The Real Housewives because that's a longer term contract, and she's got the for it. The question
Does one have to be a wife, though, to be on the show?
I don't think so. I don't watch it, but I don't think so. I think you just have to be kind of an unstable.
I'm being picky. I'm being
unstable bon vivant. But Ryan Leza, who I guess is trying to still have a career in journalism and or at least in independent media, in whatever capacity he wants to have it, um, didn't disclose any of this. I mean, everything he's writing now as a journalist, and this is the part that drives me crazy. It's the same reason I pay a subscription to the New York Times with a full understanding that I'm not going to get all the information, because all the information they're sitting on will be the good stuff will be saved for the books that will come out in 18 to 24 months after they get the contract, which could be 3 to 4 years after said information is known to them. Same thing here. I mean, I would have signed up for Telos a year ago, 6 months ago, whenever it was before Bobby's confirmation hearings. I would have paid the same amount. I mean, I'm not paying for it now, but he could have made the same amount of money if he did it prior to the hearing, so that we knew, and more importantly, the Senate had all the information at their disposal before they made a decision to confirm this guy. But instead, he waited until Olivia Newsy had her stupid book out, which only sold about 1,600 copies, because he wanted to undermine her. And this was I'm going to screw my ex-fiance, not Robert F. Kennedy Jr., because he could have screwed him much better 6 to 8 months ago, whenever it was those hearings were. But I'm going to wait and screw her because she came after me. And I appreciate the game. I'm a political operative. Well played, Ryan Leza. Chef's kiss for how you did it. You stuck the knife in at the precise moment when it hurt her the most. However, as a journalist, did the least. As a journalist, you had an obligation.
So this week, Representative Haley Stevens of Michigan filed for impeachment of Kennedy.
Yep.
Which certainly should go off. I mean, the New York Times story, as the headline says, that she does not have the support of her party's leaders. That's a whole other topic. Let's go back to where's the judgment, where's the shock, where's the anger.
Well, she's she's running for Senate in Michigan, so this is
so it wouldn't work for obvious reasons because they don't have the majority. But at least let's make a storm about it. Let's use media to point out everything terrible, mortally dangerous that Kennedy is doing right now. There are children who are in isolation because measles is growing again because of Kennedy and his ilk. And so you have Leza. One of his throwaway lines is, gee, I wonder whether I'm getting the call because the White House found out that, or Trump found out that Kennedy had him bugged by recorded by the artist who Olivia sent there, right? There's a story there. There's something there. But Kennedy's just being accepted for what he is by both media and by politicians. And you're absolutely right that Leza could have both of them could have had a huge impact on this, and maybe he wouldn't be in the position he's in now if all this had come out before. So the responsibility lies first on them and hugely and heavily on them. But it also lies on the rest of the party and on the rest of media for not going after Kennedy now. People are dying because of what he is doing, and they're going to die because of what he's doing. And so it's just shocking that this is now treated as nothing more than sick gossip.
Well, it's Bobby being Bobby, right? That's the part that drives me crazy. It's Trump being Trump. It's Bobby being Bobby. Oh, of course he's a crazy guy, but of course he's an anti-vaxxer. But of course that's who Bobby Kennedy's been for decades. Right. So of course that's who he is, right? There's another crazy member of the Kennedy family. The reality is, as you put it, there are children who are now not going to get the hepatitis B vaccine. They're going to die. They're going to die. There are kids who are not getting the measles vaccine. They're going to die, and some already have. And to be clear, he is vaccinated. His wife is vaccinated. His children are all vaccinated. So this is complete and utter bullshit. And it's the typical noblesse oblige thing where I know best for the little people, but at the same time, what's good for you is not good for me, and vice versa. And Ryan Leza, as a journalist, had a responsibility to do it then, not to wait till her book came out. Because I will tell you, if he had done it then, Maybe her book would have done better. Maybe she would have had, but probably not.
I
Probably not.
wonder whether the book would have come out.
Yeah,
I
actually,
wonder whether she would have been hired by Vanity Fair at that point when all
well,
this had come out.
the book would probably not have come out because I assume Simon and Schuster would have said this is a fraudulent,
Right.
this is not right. So there are ways to have done this and kill two birds with one stone. But even if the book had come out, even if she had sold more copies, which you're absolutely right, I'm skeptical would have happened. It doesn't matter. You're a journalist. You have a responsibility. You have a responsibility. And it's just this continual bullshit. And every time I read the New York Times, I know I'm only getting 60 to 75% of what these reporters know, because I know they're saving the best stuff for when Trump leaves and they can finally write the book.
Right. This is going to seem way off kilter, and so kick me under the virtual table. But I'm writing a piece right now about our responsibility when it comes to AI. And what you have is news organizations everywhere are cutting off AI, suing AI, stop from AI. Meanwhile, the propagandists and the brands are rushing to be in AI. And we've lost our most fundamental sense of our role in society, which is to inform society. We hold back behind paywalls now, and I get why they're there, but the vast majority of society is thus not informed by our journalism. We hold back behind blocks of AI, and I get that as well, but that means the people who are using AI are only going to get propaganda. We hold back for journalists' books so they can make the money from advances rather than doing things when it's timely and newsworthy. We've got to examine where we are here in our fundamental role as journalists in society. And I think, you know my view, I think we're failing in all kinds of ways. We're failing in the time of fascism, but we're failing at a larger level. We're not a profession anymore. And maybe that's okay. Maybe I also argue that it's time to expand the practice and the practitioners of journalism. It's happening on the right in the sense of who's sitting in the Pentagon press room, but it's happening on the left. There's a lot of independents like you out there. And so I think that we have to start paying more attention to the independents and less attention to the institutions, because the institutions are failing.
They're totally failing. I mean, you mentioned this, we were talking offline before about what Time Magazine has done with putting a cover. Again, Michelle's not here, so I wish I could put this up, but I have no idea how to. I have no idea how to
Technology.
Technology is not my jam. That's Michelle Kinney is the master of that stuff. So we miss you, Michelle, when you watch this later. But
more ways than one, Michelle.
Yeah, more ways than one, Michelle. Not just for the technology, but also for your incredible contributions and viewpoints and just smart analysis. But basically, they have a magazine cover that has a bunch of tech guys, Elon and the OpenAI guy, and I guess Zuckerberg and whoever, sitting on what looks like a construction beam overlooking, I don't know,
the famous Rockefeller Center, or was it Empire State Building picture of people sitting on a beam in the middle of the sky.
And that's their Person of the Year cover, and it's the AI. The architects of AI is Time's Person of the Year. Well, my friends at Time, maybe, I mean, you may be right about that, but guess who's going to be putting Time Magazine into the grave? AI. These people.
Well, let's not forget who owns Time Magazine now, too.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is a technology executive himself, owner of and
Mark
founder of
Benioff.
Salesforce,
Yep.
Mark Benioff. And so this glorifies his industry and his friends. And he's been controversial lately because he, in San Francisco, he sided with the idea of Trump sending in troops, and all of his friends got really mad at him, and he had to backtrack. So this is a way to make up with his friends. And then there's another part of this. There's a wonderful character named Jürgen Schmidhuber, who is an AI scientist. He's one of the pioneers. AI has many fathers. He's one of them. And somebody else put up a mockery of the Time cover with Schmidhuber holding up the beam, pointing out that it's the researchers who made AI happen. Sam Altman is not an engineer.
Yeah.
He doesn't know about this. A few people who are on that beam are. Demis Hassabis from DeepMind is. I think that I would classify the founder of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, among engineers, but people like Jan LeCun and Jeffrey Hinton and others who actually had the brain power to come up with this. The people who wrote the original paper at Google on that all you need is attention that made this possible aren't there. So this is a lionization of the robber barons of our Gilded Age, rather than of the technology that they think that they're praising here.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me. You know, we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I cannot stop thinking about that conversation, which is AI has a very specific view depending on who programs it, depending on who owns it, right? So if you ask Grok certain questions, it's going to come back in a very interesting way. OpenAI has gotten less and less accurate over the last couple of months, I've noticed. And I've been wondering why. And then I realized it is because they don't take things that are behind a paywall for the most part because they're afraid of getting sued. So what they do is they only have access to the stuff that is not behind a paywall. A lot of that stuff is put there on purpose to program OpenAI and others to have a particular point of view. And again, like if you're only getting your information from not the New York Times, which is paywalled, not the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, which is paywalled, but from these free sites that exist purely for you to poach information from them, no wonder it's going to get less and less accurate. And that's scary because most people are going to listen. By the time I have a 13-year-old, by the time he graduates high school, I bet you half the stuff is going to be, AI general. The research is going to be through AI at least.
So let me put you on the spot, Julie. Ask you a question.
Yes.
If you're Rupert Murdoch, you want a big bucket of money so that you won't sue or lobby against the AI companies. They're not afraid of you. No offense, but they're not afraid of you, the AI companies. On the one hand, you have a paywall for a good reason, is so you can earn the money to do what you're doing. Yeah. You're also putting, this right now is going out free to my friends on Facebook and Twitter. Yep. I'll never call it X because we can. And so you also share things openly. You're on TV for free. People can see you there for free. Yeah. So here's my question finally. If you got a questionnaire from Substack that said you either can allow or disallow your work there to be read by AI, what would your instinct be?
My instinct would be, well, it's an interesting question. As a mercenary capitalist, my instinct would be no. As somebody who cares about the future of democracy and making sure that it's not just the Rupert Murdoch point of view, although he's a bad example because he's actually suing them, my answer would be yes. So I guess what I would do is I would say, sure, you could go ahead and do it to the extent that people want to go to OpenAI and say, hey, read behind, but I'm not going to bring down the paywall. Like if you want to read my stuff the way I wrote it, go behind the paywall.
Well, in fact, there's an argument to be made that unless the AI knows you exist,
they're not going to ask.
It won't quote you and link to you. So it is also the new means of discovery. It's the way 100%. People will discover you.
Yeah.
So it may make sense to make a deal with AI. I don't think Substack should do that on behalf of all of its authors. That's exactly what they should be doing.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to do that. But in any case, back to Time Magazine.
Well, Substack, sorry to interrupt. I don't think Substack is particularly interested in other people discovering their authors. I think they're just interested in making money off their authors, right? So that's
exactly. So
but if you care about the future of democracy, then the answer has to be yes.
Yeah, I mean, my books are included in the various databases, and I'm happy about it. I want people to hear what I say. That's why I do it. I've got the ego to think that I've got something worth saying, so I want it out there. The other thing, just to mention, is Person of the Year is such unmitigated bullshit. Always has been, absolutely meaningless. The same with lists of people. The top this or that, the top under 40 this or that are ridiculous. It's a magazine trick. I was on People magazine years ago when we had a cover, and I actually forget who it was. Who was the? Hold on a second here. Let me see how this works. Who was the first sexiest man alive at People magazine?
Oh, you're asking me or asking
No, I'm
AI?
asking Mel
Oh,
Gibson. Google will just
okay.
give the answer. So I was in the editor's office, Pat Ryan, my mentor there, and she had a cover of Mel Gibson, and she was tearing her hair out, saying, "What do I say about him? Another pretty boys here. Yeah, I don't know."
Well, now there's a
And
lot to say
went
about him,
around.
but probably not back then. But yeah,
Back then, that's all he was. Yes,
yeah.
amen. There was a lot more to say about him. So she finally just came up with this cover billing. No, let's screw it. Let's just call him the sexiest man alive. And thus was born a franchise, right? And it became a whole thing. And then there was Sexiest Woman Alive, and then there were TV shows and all this stuff. And it was pure desperate bullshit. That's all these things are. So it's
But
meaningless
it's
that,
more than that, though. It's more than that because it makes you as the publication important, right? If I
yes,
suddenly put
yes, yes.
together, if I'm Mediaite and I put together the top 100 most important people in media, everybody's going to be sucking up to me. Everybody's going to be giving me stuff. Everybody's
Uh
going to
huh.
be vying
Uh
for
huh.
my attention because everybody wants to be on that list,
Yeah. Starting
right?
with Donald Trump,
Starting with Donald Trump, of course.
right?
For
That,
remember the
that
whole
shows the value of this currency in the real
yeah,
world.
starting with Donald Trump. And Trump was remember how Trump used to threaten Forbes for not making him, a
Yeah.
billionaire?
Yep.
Like who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And but yet people like I've been in those political lists and people like I walk into people's offices and they have this framed and hanging up
Mm-hmm.
because they think it's going to impress their clients and it does. And so I've never done it, but I know people who have, knowing it's bullshit. And the way they get on those lists is you suck up to the person creating the list, and the person creating the list suddenly becomes the most important person. Hey, if Julie and Jeff wanted to start the most important, 100 people in media tomorrow, I guarantee you every single one of those people will be sucking up to us today because it validates them. In fact, we should do it just to see it.
Yeah. What the
Just
hell? Yeah.
we should do it just
I
for
think we
the
see the birth of a new franchise right here,
yeah,
folks.
just for the experimentation, right? And suddenly
Mm-hmm.
you have advertising, and suddenly people are leaking to you, and suddenly people are telling you stuff, and it's the complete. It's a joke, but as an experiment, I'm always like half tempted to do it just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, Jeff Jarvis, you have a Jeff Jarvis's top, 100 most important people in cable news. You're going to be invited to CNN 20 times a day. Of course you would. Of course you would. They'd be vying to have you on.
Well, in full disclosure, in my single days many, many years ago, I was one of the 100 most eligible bachelors in San Francisco. Just, just,
Really?
just for the
By,
record, yes.
by whom? By whom?
The San Francisco Magazine.
How much sucking up did you have to do to San Francisco
I
Magazine
was a
to get that?
columnist on the Examiner, so that got me
Oh,
in.
oh, okay.
I
Well,
got a few dates out of it. It was all
did it
right.
get you some dates? You know what
Yeah,
I'd say?
yeah.
That I will say this. It probably gives you street cred, right? The other thing it does is it gives you street cred because it's
Mhm.
somebody else's trusted name, right? So San Francisco
Yeah.
Magazine, not that the San Francisco Examiner was not street cred enough, but still,
Well, no,
yeah. But
it was barely a
it's
newspaper still.
well, but still, but it's kind of, but it is interesting because they're all fluffing each other. You're absolutely right. It's Mark Benioff is putting all of his San Francisco Silicon Valley friends on the cover of Time magazine. You have the Washington Post being deployed now to advance Jeff Bezos's financial interests. Um, you have CBS being deployed now, including 60 Minutes, to suck up to so the Ellisons can suck up to Trump so they can get their next merger and acquisition done.
Right.
And all of this is, and then you have places that are not particularly beholden to anybody, like the New York Times, like this Ryan Lee's example, that are just holding back information that all of us need so they can make a buck off of it in a book deal that's worth a lot more than their salary, right? Like some of these bigger New York Times reporters, they don't make their money at the Times. Roger Ailes used to always say this to me, and I have to be careful because I'm probably violating my NDA, but I don't think this is a negative thing about him. He would always say to me, and he said this to everybody else, I'm not going to pay you what you think you're worth. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the opportunity to go and sell books and make money on speaking fees. And you're going to do it because you are the number one cable news station in the nation. And
Yep.
he was absolutely right. He was right. And that's what the New York Times does for their reporters. We're giving you valuable real estate, but you're going to have to wait to make money, not off of us. You're going to have to wait to make money off of Simon and Schuster or Random House or whoever is going to give you the contract and whatever speaking fees you want to get. And
Andrew Ross
you know,
Sorkin has the #1 bestseller.
yeah,
That's
and
how it
it's not
happens.
because anybody watches CNBC, right? It's
No.
or because the deal book. It's just he does, of course.
Right.
I had dinner this week with a very high profile on-air guy at one of the major cable networks, and he's just a good friend, so I want to protect his privacy. But where he was basically saying is that he gets paid a tremendous amount of money being on air, but where he really makes the money is on speaking fees, and that's not on the back of the network. That's on the backs of, the network gives him a platform, and he goes and people pay for him to do that, and he was able to have his father buy a very nice house for himself as a result of getting a cut of that. So like, I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. And yeah, this is not a Roginsky story. I can't tell you who it is, unfortunately. We have this joke on the morning show that I'm like Forrest Gump, where I always have random stories about like really random people, and they're always like something along the lines of, yeah. So I was walking down the street, and then Tony Danza went nuts on my dog. Like these little stories like that. So yeah, this is not one of those Forrest Gump stories. I'm sorry for people in the chat, because it's not a Roginsky story, because this guy is actually a very good guy, and I don't want to betray his confidence. But the point is, that's how it's done, and they get that's how it's done. And the people who are missing out are the readers and the subscribers who are tuning in for information that they're not getting, whether they know it or not, whether it was the Ryan Lisa thing or an Olivia Newsy thing back when it really mattered, not now, because the damage is done to everybody else, obviously, other than Olivia Newsy from Ryan Lisa's perspective. And it's certainly, I'm sure, I am positive that there is a New York Times reporter out there or a Washington Post reporter out there who knows exactly what is wrong with Donald Trump, who knows exactly why he's got the black and blue in his hand, what the disease is, what his prognosis is, because that White House leaks like a sieve.
Yeah.
And when we'll find out? At his funeral.
When the book's out.
When the book's out. And the book will be out at the funeral, because they won't want to lose access. Yep. They won't want to lose access.
And the irony in media terms is that even best-selling books don't sell that many copies. I think it's 100. Last I looked, it's 100. Some books sold more than 100,000 copies, which is to say that the book, even though the publisher will pay you a lot of money for an advance for a book they think is going to sell well. I don't know what the advance that Olivia Newsy got for hers. It's certainly in Simon and Schuster's lost column now, and so that's why they do it. They do it for that juicy money, but in terms of actual impact, it's not that great. Not many people buy books. I'm sorry to say, as an author, and but it's just the reality of it. And but you get attention because your book's out, so you get on media. It's all this game of veils that we have in our media.
Yeah, and what I don't understand is why Simon & Schuster would give a big advance for books that don't sell.
There was a reference in the Liza column about $1 million related to their prior book. Did they have $1 million advance?
They had $1 million advance that they were going to split.
God.
Yep, to write the definitive book on 2024 campaign. Yep. And the question is, who was going to buy? How are they ever going to earn back that advance?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I don't understand. Like, how does that happen?
It's a crazy business too, because books are a blockbuster economy, just like venture capital. And so the few big ones make up for all the many losses you have. And so you make bets to get the big ones. And thus you make bets on hype.
Yeah.
And on celebrity. And that's where you go.
Yeah, but is this celebrity? I mean, this is like yet another Trump book, right? Like yet another, and there's some very good books that have come out in the Trump era. I'm not suggesting there aren't, but do they earn back their crazy advances? I don't know. Like Michelle Obama earned back her advance, I assume.
Yes.
Prince Harry certainly.
I don't know whether Kamala Harris did. It sold well for a while, but I doubt it.
Prince Harry certainly earned back his advance, but that was good, juicy gossip, right?
Yeah.
That was the best-selling book after the Bible, which is insane to me.
That says a lot about society as well.
A lot about society. But who was going to read Olivia Newsy and Ryan Liza's book about the Trump campaign?
Well, here's what fascinates me: is there without question, there's a juicy 3-part miniseries in their tale. It's a beaut. But whose rights do you buy? How do you do that? If you come out with the Olivia Newsy perspective, that's worthless. If you come out with just the Ryan Liz perspective, that's worthless.
I guess you buy both their rights, right?
I guess so.
I mean, do you remember the Joey Buttafuoco, Amy Fisher?
Oh, yes.
Remember that? I don't know. For anybody who's of a certain age who's watching the show, back in I guess the 80s, right? There was that very famous torrid Long Island affair between Joey Buttafuoco, who was this guy from Long Island, and his underage mistress. I don't know how else to describe. I hate that word, but this woman he was having this torrid girl. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say woman. She was like 16. He was having this torrid affair with, and I guess back then it wasn't really looked down upon that she was young. It was just looked down upon that she ended up trying to kill his wife afterwards. And they were like, this story was so captivated everything that they had like 5 different like 5 different networks doing the same story. One told from Amy Fisher's perspective, one told from his wife's perspective, Joey Buttafuoco's perspective, one told from Mary's perspective. And it got to the point where Saturday Night Live did this whole joke where they did like these different takes, and they're like, PBS presents The House of Buttafuoco. And it was like this whole thing. And I don't know, whose rights do you buy? I guess everybody.
I guess everybody's. So I just listened to a good book. I'll give it a plug. Blank Space by W. David Marks, which is a cultural history of this century, this young century, but we're already a quarter into it.
Which is crazy.
And it doesn't, I don't think it mentions Buttafuoco, but everything else that was both interesting and especially tacky about culture in this country in this century. And we're a very tacky country.
We are a very tacky country. I have a Substack that I'm going to that I did yesterday. I'm not, because it's kind of relevant, that I'm going to throw in the chat, called Can We Talk About Erica Kirk, that goes specifically into how tacky we are as a country. And just it's just amazing. I mean, I'll just read your paragraph. Kirk's Instagram reads like a devotional written by a LA creative director. The loss is tragic, yes, but the lighting's sublime. Always a slant of golden hour melancholy. Always the look of a woman who's deeply sorrowful, but also available for brand partnerships. Her lamentations are algorithmically optimized, part scripture, part self-help, all designed for maximum dissemination. Its mourning is an aesthetic experience. And that's the kind of tackiness that we live in. Thank you.
Yes.
But that's what it is. I mean, we live in a tacky country, and it's one thing to be tacky on your own time. And, if I wanted to go be tacky on Substack right now, I could be, and nobody's going to stop me. But when CBS, to come back to our original discussion before we sign off for the day, if CBS is going to participate in this tackiness, if CBS is going to enable this tackiness, then CBS, by transitive property, also becomes tacky. And that splatters not just on Barry Weiss, that splatters on the fine people at 60 Minutes who have devoted their entire careers to not being tacky, who've devoted their lives to creating good journalism. Some of whom you know and some of whom I know. Mm-hmm. And they are wonderful people who are in it for all the right reasons. And it's tragic. I mean, it's not right about what is happening to them, because a bunch of billionaires bought their network and decided that they were going to exploit their good work to curry favor with Donald Trump, the tackiest man of all. That's the problem. This all emanates from the tackiest man of all.
There was a word, I'm not sure if it's fully made up, that I read in a translation of a paper, a book I'm getting, and it was the banalization, making everything banal. And I think that's where it comes. In the video clip that I sent Julie, that I tortured her with because we can't figure out how to put it on the air. It's just an hour, a minute 40 of Barry Weiss with Erica Kirk, and I haven't heard it either. I played it silently, and guess what? She breaks down in tears. Once again, neither of us wants to, for a moment, give her anything but sympathy for what happened to her husband. But now comes the moment of exploitation of that. And by her, but more importantly by Barry Weiss and by CBS and by the Ellisons. And it's used. And that's what we do, is we use people and we use reality. we banalize real life.
Yeah. And I don't even know if it's banal. I don't even know if that's the right word, because banal is almost too banal for what this moment is.
Yeah.
Not to sound tautological, but banal is a little too trite almost for the moment that we're living in.
Yeah.
It seems a little bit more nefarious to me than that, right? And I'm not sure what the right word is for it, but I will say, of course, she breaks down in tears. And by the way, if somebody murdered my husband in front of me, I would break down in tears too. I will say this though: if somebody murdered my husband, if that ever
God
happened to
forbid.
me, God forbid, you'd never see me again, because I'd be, but everybody mourns differently, so that's a whole different story. But um, but even if you mourn publicly the way she does, and I don't begrudge her,
No.
maybe it's therapy for her, but she's not talking about that. She's furthering a political agenda. I don't
Exactly.
understand for the life of me what mourning your husband, if like, you're talking about why women support Zoran Mandani. How does that have anything to do with your husband's death?
Right.
At this point, you're just exploiting your husband's death and taking the opportunity, which your husband, her knowing her husband, probably would have appreciated, to push a political agenda, because that is how she's honoring her husband, by furthering his toxic, misogynistic, racist, antediluvian agenda. And that is her right to do. Good for her if that's how she thinks she's going to honor her dead husband. It is not the job of CBS to help her in that quest. It is not the job of Andrew Ross Sorkin to help her in that quest. And yet that is
And
what
not
they
just
do.
to help, but to exploit. It's an exploitation sandwich. It's also how Barry Weiss and the Ellisons are making money from this
Yeah.
and getting attention from it and currying favor with Trump with it.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And of course, she breaks down in tears. I will say this: I have used a lot of makeup in my life. And in my entire life, I have never found a waterproof mascara that doesn't run when you cry ugly or when you cry. And I've never seen any of her mascara run. I'll just say that. And eyeliner. And she uses a lot of it. It's just, the whole thing is just gross. It's performative. It's and again, if that's what she wants to do, that's okay. Like, I don't begrudge her.
No, no.
I actually do not begrudge her. Who I begrudge are the people who are enabling this shit.
Yes, exactly.
And in some ways, I think I also, it's like, and I said this too, it's like you could almost hear the pitch meeting in the executive suite, right? What if we mixed Oprah's favorite things with a Hallmark Christmas movie and added a splash of culture war piety and soft focus lighting to get both the Fox News crowd and the skincare influencer demo? I mean, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And not one person in that room at CBS said this feels gross. We
Right.
should not.
Right.
That's the problem.
Because they were afraid to say it. And they thought it.
Of course they thought it. But the reason that she's able to get away with this is she's figured something essential out about this moment, which is that MAGA grief. And I specifically want to say it's MAGA grief, because when kids get murdered at Parkland or kids get murdered at Sandy Hook, they are, and their families are, exploited by MAGA in the worst way possible, lest we forget about Alex Jones. But apparently MAGA grief is like the last taboo, right? It's the last great marketing opportunity. If you criticize her, you're a monster. If you ignore her, you're heartless. But if you feature her, you're a compassionate truth teller, and you've also got excellent Q scores, right? And it's all about the Q score.
I won't know the names, but I can't wait to watch the closing credits on the town hall with Erica Kirk. Who had the lack of pride to make this thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's people who know their skills. They know the technology. They know how to use TV. They know how to do this stuff, and they used it for this purpose.
But they're also the people, and you and I both know it because you and I are both around these people all the time. It's a tough business. Everybody's cutting. Everybody's being laid off. I've got to do what I've got to do. I've got a family to support, and I need a job. And I don't know where I'm going to find one if I get fired, because I'll never have a gig like this again. And I sympathize tremendously.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
Incredibly tough, as you know, because you've done it, and I've certainly done it, to walk away from a lucrative opportunity over principle. And it's not for everybody. And I certainly don't begrudge you if you have bills to pay and you can't do it. I get it. And I get it. Having said that, one day this moment will be over, and you will have to look your family in the eye, because your kids and your grandkids are sure as shit going to ask you what happened.
And the same with all of those tech gods who sat on that steel beam or were put there by AI, and AI technology and Photoshop. At some point, their employees are going to wake up and say, "We were watching this whole time when you sucked up. And yeah, the stock price went up, but you had no principle."
Yeah. Yeah. But they don't care, because they'll be able to by that time, AI will be revising history so much that they'll be, I mean, that's the other thing. We're assuming that history is going to be what history's been through the course of, our lifetime. But the reality is, by the time these books are written, or more relevantly, somebody puts their names into Chat GPT or whatever their next AI thing is going to be, they're going to be coming across as, Cicero.
Yeah, I think the first time we talked, I said that I'm old enough. I don't know whether I'll be around for the pendulum swing, if it swings at all, and how long it would take to swing. But I pray it'll swing.
Well, it has to swing. If not,
Well,
humanity's finished. I mean, I really mean that.
yeah,
Humanity's finished. It's not,
yeah.
and that's not an exaggeration. That's not a hyperbole. I really believe that. So, on that very happy note,
In the holiday spirit,
in the holiday spirit, are we going to do this next week?
I hope
Are we
so.
around? Okay,
Yep, I'm
good.
around.
Fabulous. I'm around as well. I am around. The only day that I am not around is the 26th, because I will be forced to be in Florida. If anybody hears from Florida, I'm so sorry
Oh,
to say this about your state, but I'm not a big fan of Florida. However, I am a big fan of my son, and he really has been dying to go to Miami. I don't know why, but it's been on his bucket list. I offered up Europe. He chose Miami.
Miami over Europe?
Miami Uber alles.
Listen, on your way to your country home, stop by my house. I'm gonna have a talking to with your son.
We're going to be driving right past you
Right,
now.
right.
Yeah. Miami. We will be in Miami. We will be going to Miami Heat games, and we'll be going to Miami Dolphins games, and
Kid, got to work on you.
not on me. You got to work on my kid. Yeah, I
I had
know.
to I had to work hard to finally get my father out of Florida, and I didn't have to go back then. Yeah,
Yeah, I had a thing where I swore I would not set foot in Florida until Ron DeSantis was out of there, because I'm so offended by what he's doing. So my boycott of Florida lasted for a very long time, and I had to go last year because of family stuff, and now I'm going again this year. And so as much as I talk about other people's principles, my principles went out the window when it came to my own family. So,
I'll enjoy the weather.
oh, does anybody enjoy the weather down there? It's humid, it's hot, it's
Not this
rainy.
time of year. It's nice. That's why they're there.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
I
wear your
guess.
sunscreen.
Oh, yes. All right. Well, we'll see everybody here next week.
We will.
Again, at Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And we're happy that you're home safe from Austria, which is no Miami, but it's still quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
it's no,
Great schnitzel.
it's no, the Alps are no Florida, but all right. Great to see you. Great to see everybody in the chat. Thanks everybody for joining, and we will see you all next week. Bye, everybody.